Welcome to today's brand origin deep dive. You've heard of Windows, the operating system that runs most of the world's computers. But do you know how a bold, almost reckless reinvention nearly brought the global icon to its knees? You are standing before rows of silent servers now, dusty and forgotten, in a sub-basement of an anonymous building. The air is thick with the scent of ozone and neglect. These aren't just machines. They hold secrets, digital ghosts of decisions made under pressure, of interfaces loved and reviled. Your fingers trace the cool metal of a server rack, humming with residual power. A faint, almost mournful sound. You've come searching for the truth behind a scar etched into the history of a global icon. The seismic shift, the almost catastrophic misstep that was Windows 8. It's a story not of code, but of human vision, corporate ambition, and the chilling disconnection between creators and the millions who lived inside their digital world. If you find value in this kind of storytelling, consider liking the video and subscribing. It helps more than you know. Also, let us know in the comments where you're watching from or what your own memories of this era are. You are peeling back the layers, seeking the origin point of a fracture that changed everything. You are about to step back in time, into the quiet anticipation before the storm, into the minds that dared to dismantle familiarity. Let's dive in and discover how it all began. Stepping back, you enter a different kind of quiet. The hushed meeting rooms where Windows 8 first took shape. Here the air crackles with a bold vision, driven by the seismic shift towards touch interfaces dominating the mobile world. This section delves into the genesis, exploring the radical forces pushing Microsoft to shed its skin. You uncover early concept art for what would become the Metro interface, a world of vibrant tiles and stark typography. It feels like stepping into a futuristic art gallery, clean and utterly unlike the familiar desktop you knew. There's a weight of ambition in these mock-ups. A palpable desire to reinvent the PC for a touch-first era, perhaps even forcing the world to adapt. A significant, almost symbolic thread is introduced here: the planned absence of the iconic Start button. This wasn't an oversight. It was a deliberate act of disruption, a statement that resonated deeply and negatively with users later. Sensory details focus on the clean, almost alien lines of early mock-ups, the quiet confidence radiating from internal documents, and the sense of entering a digital space designed with little regard for its previous inhabitants. The emotional shift begins subtly. From anticipation and bold innovation, you feel a nascent undercurrent of unease, a foreshadowing of the growing disconnect. The brand core is attempting a radical transformation, shedding its skin, preparing for a future few users anticipated, or, as it turned out, truly wanted. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind such a dramatic break from established user habits. Building on the foundation laid in the previous phase, you witness the launch. Not just the polished public spectacle, but the raw, unfiltered reactions bubbling up in forgotten support logs and internal forums you uncover. The stark, tile-based interface of Windows 8 floods screens worldwide, a vibrant, almost aggressive departure from the familiar landscape. It felt less like an update and more like getting a new apartment where someone moved all your furniture. The sensory details are overwhelming. The jarring visual whiplash, transitioning between the traditional desktop and the modern UI. The fumbling confusion over basic navigation gestures, swiping from the side, and most acutely, the sudden, gaping absence of the beloved start button. For millions, this wasn't just a missing icon. It was a physical and psychological void, a symbol of lost control. This is where the emotional shift hits like a tidal wave. The transition from corporate confidence, even arrogance, to widespread public outcry, confusion, and raw anger. The brand faces an identity crisis in real time, its bold attempt at modernity perceived not as innovation, but as a betrayal of its core users. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind abandoning decades of learned user behavior so abruptly. The symbolic thread of the missing start button becomes a palpable anchor for this feeling of a forced march into an unwanted future. Foreshadowing appears in the frantic, almost panicked pace of early patch development. Whispers documented internally speak of engineering teams practically living at the office, fueled by caffeine and code, trying to smooth the roughest edges. These hushed tones in internal user feedback reports hint at the deep structural problems beneath the glossy tiles, a silent scream brewing into a roar. Building on the impact we just discussed, you step into the corporate aftermath, feeling the tremors of the Windows 8 disaster ripple through Microsoft's Redmond campus. This wasn't just a product failure. It was an internal earthquake. You witnessed the frantic scramble firsthand, the urgent huddles in glass-walled conference rooms. The air is thick with tension, carrying the echo of raised voices as factions clash. On one side, designers cling desperately to the metro vision, arguing for the aesthetic's purity, while engineers, grounded in user feedback, demand pragmatic fixes. Things like, well, a start button. Executives are split, some pushing relentlessly forward, others quietly urging a strategic retreat, counting the cost in lost trust and negative press printouts scattered like fallen leaves on desks. The feeling is one of stagnation, a sense of being adrift in development labs, as teams receive conflicting directives daily. The emotional shift is palpable, from initial panic to a creeping desperation marked by infighting that chips away at the brand's core. It's like watching a ship's hull fracture under immense pressure. The most intense debates? Often centered on the potential return of the start button. It wasn't just about navigation. It was a fierce argument about what Windows is and who it truly serves. Was it a touch-first platform for a future that hadn't arrived, or the familiar workhorse millions relied on? Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind sticking to such a divisive design for so long. A quirky detail from this era: internal memos leaked later showing detailed proposals for how the start button could return, each version revealing a different internal faction's philosophy, a miniature war of icons and menus playing out on paper. This period of turmoil foreshadows a fundamental reassessment, laying the groundwork for a massive course correction to come. From the turbulence that followed, you move into a clandestine period of intense development. This is where redemption begins, born from the wreckage of past missteps. The focus shifts fundamentally, moving away from radical, touch-first reinvention back towards user-centric design, prioritizing the billions who still relied on keyboard and mouse, yet integrating lessons learned from the mobile push. You witness a narrative of learning from failure, rebuilding trust one meticulous line of code at a time, in quiet, dedicated testing labs, where the low hum of machinery underscores focused determination. There's a palpable sense of cautious optimism filtering through developer journals as the interface elements are refined. This collective effort aims to redeem the brand's reputation. The major turning point? The launch of the Windows Insider program. Suddenly, millions become collaborators, their feedback directly shaping the operating system. A direct, public effort to bridge the chasm of trust that had opened. Behind the scenes, internal discussions about the precise form the returning Start menu would take were reportedly quite passionate, bordering on contentious, a small battleground reflecting the larger war for the platform's soul. The symbolic thread of the Start button evolves profoundly. It's not merely returning, but transforming into a dynamic, adaptive element, attempting to unify disparate experiences, the familiar desktop environment merging with the modern app platform. Brand historians still debate whether the unprecedented decision to offer Windows 10 as a free upgrade was a masterstroke that rebuilt vital market share rapidly, or a necessary gamble that forever altered the traditional PC operating system revenue model. This new Windows isn't just an OS, it's foreshadowed as a continuous service, a living entity that will require constant attention and carry the weight of past mistakes into its future. Building on the hard lessons learned, you witness the careful, almost apologetic arrival of Windows 10. The narrative shifts dramatically, now positioned as a direct response to your feedback. Marketing campaigns are slick, polished, and relentlessly focus on bringing back what was missed, while evolving forward. There's a distinct sensory experience to it. The crisp, welcoming sound of the new boot sequence signals stability, and the physical act of installing feels less like a leap of faith and more like returning home, albeit with a renovated kitchen. The brand takes a collective sigh of relief. Escaping the shadow of its predecessor feels like stepping back from the precipice of irrelevance. Users, however, greet it with a mixture of genuine relief and lingering skepticism. Trust, once broken, isn't instantly restored. The Start button, that beloved icon, isn't just back. It's central, refined, and re-empowered. An anchor point in the user experience that grounds the system. A quirky detail lost on many? The internal code name for the Start menu's return was Threshold, literally signifying crossing back over a boundary. Yet, amidst this return to form, a new concept emerges: Windows as a service. Analysts continue to question the long-term strategic wisdom of defining the OS as a perpetual project rather than a finished product. A hint that while this version feels like stability, the future promises continuous, maybe even unsettlingly frequent, shifts. This rollout is the major historical milestone, a pivot point aiming to unify the platform and rebuild confidence. You stand back, looking at the vast landscape of Windows users today. The trauma of Windows 8 fades for many, replaced by the ubiquitous presence of Windows 10 and its successors. But the echoes remain. This radical experiment left a scar, a stark reminder that even the most powerful brands are vulnerable to misjudgment, internal conflict, and the unpredictable force of user expectation. What did the Windows 8 era truly cost? Not just in market share, but in lost trust, in the careers of designers whose vision was ahead of its time, or simply misguided, in the confusion of millions forced to adapt overnight. Analysts continue to question the reasoning behind abandoning decades of user habits so abruptly. The symbolic Start button, once removed, now sits at the heart of the interface, a silent monument to the struggle, a seemingly small detail, but a powerful reminder of the fundamental connection between a system and the human hand that guides it. Windows learned a hard lesson. Interfaces are not just tools, they are homes people inhabit daily. Dismantling that home without consent is a profound act. As technology continues its relentless march, pushing for seamless, intuitive experiences, will brands be tempted again to break drastically with the past? Will the ghost of Windows 8 hover over future reinventions, a cautionary tale whispered in the language of interfaces and icons? And so we arrive at the present, reflecting on a journey filled with ambitious leaps and humbling stumbles. The story of this brand isn't neatly concluded. It's a continuous loop of building, breaking, and rebuilding, a testament to the volatile dance between technology, commerce, and the human desire for both progress and comfort. From humble beginnings to global dominance, through periods of innovation and moments of deep user disconnect, the key takeaway seems clear. A brand's strength isn't just in its features, but in the relationship it builds with the people who use it. The lessons of the Windows 8 period, though painful, underscored the value of familiarity and the importance of involving the community in the evolutionary process. The symbolism of that little start button returning speaks volumes, not just about interface design, but about listening, adapting, and respecting the digital spaces people call their own. Perhaps the true legacy isn't the operating system itself, but the understanding gained from its tumultuous journey, that technology serves humanity, and reinvention works best when it builds upon rather than demolishes the foundations of trust and expectation. And maybe, just maybe, the soul of a brand is never in its product, but in the people, stories, and stumbles that shape it.